This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on government's measures to boost exports. The participants are Santosh Tiwari, economic analyst, and Prakash Chawla, journalist.
India's exports have grown by an impressive double digit in August. And this rise has come about on the back of slightly moderate growth for the last 2 months, June and July. June and July we were doing about 4% growth in exports, and then August is double digit, about 10%. And this growth has been led by engineering, you have petroleum products, you have chemicals, and if you see the entire basket, almost all the sectors have done very well, pretty well. And in fact, there was some concern when the growth had dropped from April to May, June. But then suddenly, this really comes as a very good news for the macro economy. And especially when there were concerns with rupee was rising. So the rupee was rising, the exporters were wondering whether their competitiveness would be intact. But this is a real good news for the exporting community as also for the overall macro picture. And then you have this $400 billion reserves as the icing on the cake. So if you see this scenario, at least on the external front, it looks quite bright.
There is no doubt about that. If you look at the exports scenario first, after continuous decline of about a year or so, exports started picking up in last 1 year. The growth has been continuous. Yes, you are right that previous 2 months, it was not in double digits. So double digit has come back now in August, so which is a very good sign. And that has come back because of your rise in crude prices and also good performance on account of, as you said. So basically it has come back to 10%, double digit, which is quite a good sign. Now you have to look at how the things are changing in terms of international trade. US is picking up and then Europe is also picking up. Overall, the trade scenario is picking up. It's going in positive direction. So that impact has to be there. And then yes, the crude prices going up means that your petroleum exports has gone up in value terms. So that is one good plus. But overall, in terms of exports if you see, or the external sector if you see, India's situation appears to be quite good. Why? For the simple reason is that for 1 year, if your exports is growing at least, and in August if it has shown a double-digit growth, then maybe people are saying that there are certain pressures which we will talk about going ahead. There are pressures on exports, but overall export situation is good. Now then come back to the forex reserve situation. If your foreign exchange reserve today, first time it has crossed $400 billion yesterday, which is an indication which shows that you can foot bill of 1 year imports, which is a very strong situation and which gives RBI the leverage to basically maintain forex and manage forex in a better manner. That's a big plus on terms. Why is it happening? This thing needs to be understood in totality. Why is this happening? Your foreign investment, portfolio investment you take or FDI you take, that situation is pretty good. In the first quarter itself, net FDI has doubled. FPI investment is very, very strong. So the foreign community or the foreign investors are looking at you.
They are betting very high on India.
If they are looking at your country in a positive manner, then the domestic concerns get taken care of. So if you have some problems on exports front, then that will be taken. Or if you have some problems on the current account deficit front, you would have seen that for the first quarter, current account deficit has jumped to 2.4%. which some people may see as concern. But if you have strong forex reserve, if you have export situation picking up, then you are in a situation where you can control the whole scenario in a better manner.
There's nothing much to worry because, as you rightly said, we have $400 billion of foreign exchange reserves in our kitty. And despite the fact that imports also are picking up, it also means that the domestic economy also seems to be picking up.
That's correct. If exports have risen by 10%, imports have risen by 21%.
A double rise of exports.
Yes, that is also to an extent because of your crude price rise, because your crude import of petroleum products that in value terms have risen. If your imports are picking up, your trade deficit is a little bit more than you would have been comfortable with. But overall, you must look at the situation as a positive one. Why? For the simple reason that internationally your exports is going up and your foreign investment coming into the country is going up. Your remittances are also much better.
Some of the sectors have done really well. I mean, for instance, engineering, in terms of exports I'm talking about, exports growth in August has been almost 20%. Petroleum products, as you rightly said, because of the pickup in the prices, the realizations, so to speak, has gone up by something like a very impressive 36.56%. Then you have inorganic chemicals going up by 32.4%. And the best thing about the entire basket is, if you see the agri-exports, now mind you, agri-exports may not be contributing to the extent of engineering or petro products in terms of value terms. But in terms of the overall impact on our domestic economy, agri-exports play a very important role, because that means direct connect with the farmers. Because then you have a pickup in the demand for the farm produce, and be it coffee, be it tea, be it spices, the entire basket in agri products also has done really well. And you talked about Mr. Suresh Prabhu taking over. In fact, in his opening, some of his initial remarks, he had talked about laying a lot of emphasis on agri products.
Yeah, that's correct. With India losing its hold on traditional export items like textiles, you have to basically focus on areas like agri exports or engineering goods, which is doing quite well, or your petroleum products also. These are areas which clearly indicate that the international economy or the global economic scenario is picking up. If your exports are picking up in these areas, then it is clear indication of the global economy or the trade picking up. There is a signal, and is expected. The global scenario is expected to basically improve further in coming months or so, or coming year or so. You have to build on this strength. And as you said, agri-exports. Agri-exports is a very critical sector which India has to develop going ahead. You have so much of potential for agri-exports in food items and all those things which you can export to Europe or even US. There is a huge market for Indian agri-exports.
In terms of agri-exports, right now if you see our basket, as you said, we need to build upon success. Value addition in agri-exports would do a lot of good to our economy. Value addition in terms of packaging, branding, be it spices, be it coffee, be it tea, be it several other oil meals, rice. Their exports have done tremendously well in August. There is scope for a lot more value addition in terms of food processing, in terms of building the entire value chain and then shipping our goods abroad.
This is where your policy measures, and what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is talking about comes into picture. When Prime Minister Narendra Modi says that farmers' income needs to be doubled, then doubling doesn't mean something to be done only with the increase in production. Doubling also means in terms of enhancing your marketing capabilities, enhancing your storage capabilities, etc., etc. So all those things need to be developed, but that will not come in one go. That needs policy support measures, bringing in more and more private sector players, which has not come about. In agriculture, unless until in marketing, storage, etc., if you don't come out with policies, if you don't enhance private investment, these things will not happen. But what has happened in the last 2-3 years is far, far better than what happened earlier. Now at least you are coming out with policies. Like you would have seen FDI in retail, in food items, that has been liberalized. Similarly, in infrastructure sector also, if you allow more and more foreign companies to come and set up storage facilities in the country, in Europe if you go, there are
entire processing chain, value chain.
Yes. There are companies in Europe which are their integrated companies which basically take care of storage, production, marketing, etc., and also retail. You have to look at this thing in totality, but that will take 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
One of the things that you indicated, that the reason, after all, one would ask that why this pickup in exports in August. For Indian export basket, US and entire Europe, especially the developed Europe, they are very key markets for our products. Europe and US. And some other, but these are in terms of value, they give you bulk of the value in terms of exports. Now, fortunately, in terms of pickup in the economy in these two areas, US and Europe, news is pretty good because you see the signals which are coming from the news which is coming from the US economy is doing pretty well, because that is why the interest rate scenario is being changed now. Same is true about some of the key European economies. And they are also leading to a lot of demand pickup worldwide. And India naturally has been there in these markets for quite some time. Is quite established in these markets. I think to a large extent advantage is accruing to our exporters.
That is something which you can see in August numbers, and that is something which you can see in last 1 year's export numbers also. As I said earlier, that after going down, the growth going down for 1 year, more than 1 year, exports started picking up in last 1 year. Now you have reached a situation when in August again you have a double-digit growth. Then you have areas like engineering, etc., that we discussed, which are picking up, which clearly indicate that things are appearing much better in the global economy or on the trade front than they were earlier. But if you want to capitalize on this growing global market scenario, then you will have to do 2-3 things. For sure. One, you have to improve your productivity. That is very important for your exports growth. The productivity part, which means that with the investment of rupees 10 which you are doing, if you can get 15 out of it as compared to 11 or 12 which you get today, you have to think about these things to improve your productivity. You have to bring in measures which will improve your productivity. And in India, there is one lacking thing which exports has witnessed is your linkage to the value chain in the global industry. In the global trade mechanism, more and more value chain linkage of Indian exports needs to come, which means that your product should be linked to the global production.
To become a part of the global supply chain.
Exactly.
And especially in sectors like engineering. And the good thing is that if you further break down the engineering pack, you'll find a lot of items in terms of metals. Steel, for instance, iron ore, steel, they are finding demand again. Now, sometimes what happens is an adverse situation comes about, and out of this adverse situation, you get after the adverse situation is over, you get a kind of a rebuild opportunity. For instance, my hunch is that after this hurricane in the US, the estimates of damage has been put about something like $180 billion, only of the Harvey hurricane. Now, entire rebuilding of that area which has been damaged would require a lot more demand for steel, for basic infrastructure. I think my suspicion is, my hunch is that should again pick up further demand for some of our engineering goods. And as you said, if there's an opportunity, our guys should go and grab it.
Basically, from here, when you are in a much better situation than earlier, then you have to come out with a total picture policy making roadmap, where you have to identify areas which needs to be catered to first, and then you have to move forward in that direction. You have Make in India happening in the country. You have improvement in areas, which will improve your productivity. Already you can see that. There are states which are offering much better business scenario today than earlier, like Rajasthan or probably Tamil Nadu was already there. So there are states which are offering you much better export scenario today than earlier. Not only exports, production scenario today. Things are improving little bit. Now from here you have to improve. But as far as specific areas, specific segments where you can do, as you said, hurricane part, etc., etc. For that, you have to be very, very strong to cater to those demands and needs.
And very proactive, perhaps.
Yes. That strength you have not seen from Indian industry up till now. But yes, there is capability. Government-industry partnership can bring in this capability in a strong manner. And for that, proactive leadership also is required.
I think talking about policy measures, some of the issues that were there because of the GST, the government has done a right thing by setting up a very high-level panel. And this panel will report to the GST Council the issues which have been flagged by the exporters of different categories. A panel has been formed which will report, which will talk to the exporters and raise their concerns and bring these concerns to the GST Council. Hopefully, this GST issues also will be resolved as the time goes by.
This is a transition time when you are basically transiting from the earlier tax scenario to a new tax scenario, which is GST. GST Council and all those who are in charge of the whole mechanism has to take care of this demand. In the short run, maybe there will be some problem on working capital front, because exporters are saying they are not getting refunds in a manner which they should have got. There would be some problem on the working capital front, which might lead to issues and concern in next few months exports. But these are GST related issues which will get resolved going ahead.
Thank you very much.
You are listening to a discussion on government's measures to boost exports. The participants were Santosh Tiwari, economic analyst, and Prakash Chawla, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.nic.in.